working together with our good friend Steve Carr, who's always been very kind and helped us from Bright Crystal videos, always been helping us in the past. And Steve and Rachel, some of you may know them, just made Aliyah recently, and so he put me in touch with Avi, who's videoing us on his behalf. So I'd like to thank him for that. And are we ready? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, amazing. So I'm not very good at introducing because there's so many letters after you now. What they mean? BSN, ONS, distinction, MBS, essay. Mrs. Shanny, her reputation precedes hers. Heard amazing things. Haven't had a chance to hear you speak before, but heard lots of amazing things. It's really an honour, privilege. Thank you very much for on a Sunday morning and afternoon for giving us your time and expertise. Thank you very much.
A pleasure. One thing I will say about me, not that I like to really talk too much about myself, but just to give you a little bit of a context, is that I do work a lot with a lot of children. I probably see about, between all the group sessions that I give on a given week, with all the private sessions, I would say I probably see over 100 children every single week, okay? And interact with 100 children, for sure, every single week. So I know kids. I have 6 of my own, who are not my biggest problems, thankfully. It's the children that I work with who generally cause a little bit more difficulty and need for what we would call expertise. My own children, thankfully, are doing pretty well. Although then what happens is actually your children, Rabbi Kimchi actually said this to me recently, I think it was him, he said to me, do you know what the definition of Tsar Gidol Banim is? Do you know what Tsar Gidol Banim means? It means it's difficult to bring up children. Okay, that's a phrase. It's very difficult to bring up children. He said, you know what the definition of that is? He said that as soon as they become really, really nice and enjoyable to live with and be around, that's when they leave the house and go to yeshiva or SEM or leave and go on to make their own lives. And they don't come back alone either, which is lovely and nice. And please God, everybody should get married. But so that's the definition of Tsar Gidol Banim. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is, I think it was called Developing Emotionally Healthy Children. Now, I have actually quite good news for you, I think, especially since I heard some of the questions in Johnny's session. And that is, the good news is that you don't actually have to develop emotionally healthy children. What I mean by that is that they're already emotionally healthy. Yay! We don't actually have to do it. It's not in your hands to take this little, I see these amazing little babies who are kind of floating around, and I just want to hold each other. That's so pretty all the time. I would definitely take him or her with the greatest of pleasure. I actually was trying to be very polite before when listening to Johnny Rapson speak, because I thought, I want to take a baby and go outside with the baby. I thought I should probably stay inside. But the good news about it is that you don't actually have to teach this human being how to be emotionally healthy. Isn't that good news? That's very good news. The good news is that he was born emotionally healthy. And I'm telling you it's true because I work with many, many, many children. He was born emotionally healthy. What you want to do for him is create an environment where that becomes blocked less and less as he gets older, okay? Where he's able to sort of see that emotional well-being, is able to access it in a little bit more of an easier, lighter way than having to really plow through loads of rubbish, so I would say, to get to it. Okay, but the thing is, you don't actually have to give it to him. And I saw something very, very beautiful recently by Rav Elchanan Wasserman. He talks about it in his, I think it's called Kovetz Ma'amarim, where he... It's okay? You're just fixing? Okay. So what he says... Yeah? Stand here?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. What he says is something really, really beautiful, and to me was extremely good news and very helpful. He said, you do not have to teach anybody about emunah, right? About believing in God or even believing in themselves. You don't have to teach anybody that because they already have it. They already have it. He said the only problem if somebody doesn't have emunah, somebody doesn't see things the way that you might think would be good for them to see it. The only reason why that is because something is blocking it. That's your task. Just to figure out what might help to kind of move out of the way, to help somebody be able to see their own emunah, see their own emotional well-being, see that they are actually really fine underneath anything that they might be experiencing. So that's the good news of the day. I don't have to sit there and say to you, you know what, you know nothing, I will tell you everything that you need to know, because you know what, you're fine. You've got it. You've got it. No question, you've got it. And your kids have it. And the most beautiful thing is when I'm actually remember that, and you see a child who's messed up, okay, a child who's, even teenagers who are self-harming and on drugs and alcohol and watching all kinds of stuff and doing all kinds of things. So you would say, wow, that person is really far away from being okay, right? Really, really far away. But Baruch Hashem, I know that they're not. I know that they're not. They're really not that far away. And I've seen it many, many, many times. Many times. I can become quite emotional about it when I think about it. But many, many times where people they seem so far away from what is true to them. And they just need a little bit of a realization to be able to then cut through all of that and get to who they really are. So the good news is you don't have to do that with your children. Okay, don't feel that that's my best piece of advice. Don't feel that you need to fix them or make them or mold them or shape them or create them or even develop them. Your best bet is to be a supportive role for them, to help them see their own star for what it is. Help them understand that they are amazing. They're amazing. They're awesome. They're fabulous. They're creative. They're exciting. They're full of life and full of energy and full of potential. That's your job. That's it. Right? Okay, so now we can all go home because that's easy, right? Well, I'm just going to teach you a little bit. Okay, I'm going to teach you a little bit about, because to me, the best teachers, I don't need to then teach you how to do life because you know how to do life. I'm just going to point you in a bit of a direction of what I know about how life works, okay? And that's what I like to do for kids. That's all I do. Point them a little bit in the direction of their own wisdom. Sometimes teach them a little bit of something that they might have forgotten or might not really have understood exactly. And that just slightly opens things up for them. And then they're able to see a little bit more clearly. Somebody asked a question before. I was trying to pay attention, but I was slightly distracted for a few minutes. But I think somebody asked a question before, something along the lines of, but how do you, I can't remember it exactly, but I'm going to pretend that this is what it was like. Something along the lines of, but how do you teach somebody how to do that? But how do you know whether or not he's going to be able to do something? Okay, and again, my answer is, don't worry about that. Don't worry about having to teach a child how to be, because the good news is that they already know how to be. And resilience, which is what we're going to really talk about today, which is really what we would phrase emotional well-being as resilience. Okay, resilience sort of means, if I ask you what resilience means, what would anyone say? What does resilience mean? Do you know? What does it mean to you? You've all heard the word, but maybe you haven't really thought about it particularly.
Hardiness against a situation.
Right, hardiness against a situation. That's good. Good. Because what it doesn't mean is, what resilience does not mean is never encounter any difficulty. Okay, what resilience does not mean is always stay on an even keel in life. What resilience does not mean is go through life always being happy. Right? That's not resilience. Emotionally strong, well, healthy children, and who become emotionally healthy adults, are people who understand that life does not go like this, right? What's that? That's death, right? That's not life. Life goes something like this. If you read my bio, you will know that I used to be a nurse, or I am a nurse, but I just don't practice as one. So, and I was a pediatric nurse. That's what I did. I used to work with tiny unhealthy babies. So when I see healthy newborns, it's very, very exciting. I still get very excited about it. I hope this is the right, yeah, it is, okay. Uh-oh, it might not be, actually, and it isn't. Right, I thought that might be a problem. Okay. It's supposed to be a flip chart marker. You know what we can do? Oh, 1 second. Sorry. A little bit of creativity. Let's see whether or not this works for a second. Okay, it works enough, right? We'll manage, right? Okay. So what life is really, and one of the beautiful things about life, the way that Hashem sort of designed this world that we live in, is that life teaches us about life, right? We don't have to know everything. We can often pick up clues from lots of different things going on in the world, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you look at life, right, which is, I think, an ECG or an EKG, as you would call it, would be a symbol of life, right? And an EKG looks like this, right? They kind of looks like that, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, and then down, and then it goes another one, and then another one. That's what an EKG looks like, an ECG. No, you call it an ECG, I call it an EKG. Sorry, I'm getting myself confused. An ECG looks sort of like that, right? And as soon as it starts to drop some of its things, then we start to get nervous about it. Okay, as soon as things start to straighten out a little bit too much, then that's not a very good sign. Okay, that's a very rudimentary explanation of an ECG. But the point is that life is up and life is down, and that's okay. It's absolutely fine. That's health, that's life. And what I mean by resilience and emotional well-being is to be graceful. Okay, not to never experience it, but to be graceful in the lows as well as being graceful in the highs. Okay? And that's really what we are. If you look at our heart, it's very graceful. Right? It doesn't have an impulse, it does have an impulse. It doesn't have an impulse, it does have an impulse. It does the same sort of gentle, beautiful, rhythmic thing day after day after day after day. It's beautiful, really. And it actually is dealing with so many different things, right? When you stand up to speak, suddenly your heart rate goes up, right? As soon as you are kind of settled into it, your heart rate goes down. Then, every time you hear something that might actually resonate with you, your heart rate will go up. Every time you kind of like a little bit confused about something, your heart rate will go up even more, right? But your heart deals with it. That's resilience, okay? And resilience in human beings is a beautiful thing to watch. And in children, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to behold. Thank you. That's great. That's it. It even smells like a whiteboard marker. Excellent. Okay. So resilience is a beautiful thing to watch. Why is resilience a beautiful thing to watch? Because what confident, I think also Johnny mentioned something about confident children. Confident children to me, which is what I'm going to describe as resilient children, are children who are not afraid to fail, right? They're not afraid. They'll raise their hand in class even when they're not sure of the answer, because it's okay, they'll give it a go. They'll try that running race, they'll try that new game, they'll try that new food, even if they might not like it, because they'll just give it a go. Why is that? And let's explain it a little bit more. The reason why that is that children who are healthy, who are emotionally resilient, are children who see beyond their immediate experience. Okay, and this is the same for adults too, but we're talking about children, right? They see beyond their immediate experience. Their immediate experience is, the teacher said, no, that's an incorrect answer. Okay, even if the teacher said, no, silly, that's not it. Okay? God forbid that should ever happen, right? But it will. It will happen in all of our schools and to all of our children. Sometimes, because teachers are also human beings, believe it or not, right? And so even if a child gets told that they're silly or they're ridiculous, they can say that, and their immediate experience is one of disappointment, frustration, possible embarrassment, whatever it is that they're experiencing, they can, I didn't notice you. Hello, Natalie. She is an amazing teacher. Absolutely amazing. I actually talk about you quite a bit in some of the sessions, but I won't do it right now. And I don't ever use your name, so you are like out there as this wonder teacher. But okay, it's funny that I just said teacher. She would never do that to a child, unless she was having a bad day, and then maybe she might, right? Because she's a human being. But that immediate experience of being embarrassed or afraid or incredibly uncomfortable, whatever it is, if they can see beyond that, right? They don't think that that is now their whole world. But they realize, I just had a really time. I just had a bad experience. I felt very uncomfortable. Soon I'll feel better. But 1 second, I'm actually pretty okay. I'm an okay kid, right? My mother thinks I'm okay. My father seems to think I'm okay. I can see a little bit bigger beyond what the teacher told me that I was silly. Okay, if I can do that, that's called having confidence. That's called seeing a bigger picture. That's called being emotionally resilient, okay? When we describe resilience, often they sort of have, if you Googled resilience, you would probably see like a flower that had been crushed and then was slowly rising again, right? I don't know how they do that in pictures, but that general feeling of just coming up again, because they don't actually allow their immediate experience to define who they are entirely. That's emotional resilience. What is not emotional resilience, again, is to be tougher than their experience. Emotionally resilient children will feel sad, will feel embarrassed, will feel momentarily thrown. That's absolutely fine. That's not a problem. Will feel angry at another child for sort of saying that to them, or get even upset with a teacher. But an emotionally resilient child will not be that afraid of their own emotions. Okay, and that's where we help. Okay, we adults, we help with that. They will not be afraid of their own emotions. They will just learn that it's okay to feel sad, and then eventually I will feel happier again. And you see this, I'm going to try to do this a little bit. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Bear with me. And that is that if a child sees this as a failure, okay, if they see this experience as failure, okay, they're very afraid of going down, they see this experience, okay, they're here, right, they're starting to feel a little bit nervous, they're starting to feel a little bit bad, they're starting to feel a little bit sad, okay? If they start to get very, very scared about that, then things can sometimes end up around here. Okay, that is an experience that sometimes people will. So a temper tantrum, right? A 2-year-old temper tantrum, which is cute and gorgeous, and because my kids are already, off in yeshiva, and I miss them, and I wish they would have a temper tantrum in front of me rather than being, so many miles away, and I can't even, I don't know where they're in or they're out or anything, right? But when a child has a temper tantrum, it's not a big deal, right? It's not a big deal until someone tells them it is. Because children, I said before that children are very resilient inherently. They are emotionally healthy. They have everything that they need. Yet at the same time, children also trust us and they believe us. So when we give them certain messages, they may actually take that on board. And they may learn or believe us and say, you know what? I'm not okay right now. I'm not okay. This is not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not doing okay. Okay? And that panic and that frustration or that fear is what kind of keeps us down here. Okay? And it doesn't mean that they're always going to be down here. Eventually, they will come back up because that's the nature of the human being. I always say to children in any given classroom, I say, how many of you are in a good mood right now? We've had a little bit of fun, so they'll all raise their hand. I say, how many of you were ever in a bad mood? Or even screamed and cried? So they all raise their hand. I say, well, what happened? What happened in between? How come you're in a good mood now? They said, well, I always become in a good mood at some point afterward. And I said, that's so interesting, isn't it? So do you then have to worry about being in a bad mood? Is that a problem if you're in a bad mood? They're like, it is for my mommy. I'm like, sometimes it gets hard for a mommy when a child's in a bad mood. But is it really a terrible thing if you're in a bad mood? They're like, no. I said, well, why? Because I'll get better. And one child taught me this a very long time ago, and I use it all the time. And it's been a beautiful, really, metaphor. And she spoke about this sunshine, and then I heard other people use it since, but I'm sure that she thought of this herself, because children have their own incredibly beautiful insights if we give them the space to do so. Okay? That's the trick. We can crowd out our children's emotional well-being. We can do it. I promise you we can. But we don't want to, and we don't have to. If you give children the space to have their own insights, they come up with the most unbelievably beautiful things. So what she said it's like the sun and the clouds. So it's like the sun and the clouds. The sun is my good feeling. When it's sunny, I'm feeling good. Not when it's sunny outside. When it's sunny in here, right? I'm feeling good. And then sometimes I just have clouds. And those clouds just cover my sun. And I said, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's it. And she said, well, just that cloudy thoughts. I mean, she was sort of, I'm putting it in a way that's a little bit easier to translate. But she was so insightful. She said, it's not really me. Those clouds are not really me. What's really me is my sunshine. The clouds just sometimes come and cover my sun. That's all. And that cloudy thinking is fear. That cloudy thinking is jealousy. It all comes from fear. If I give you also a bit of a hint, there are kind of two divides of how people think. Okay, or the different quality of thinking that you have. One is love thinking and one is fear thinking. Okay, and everything kind of roughly falls into those two categories. So when you feel connected to another human being, you can feel connected to an idea, you feel connected to the Bar Shalom, you are in that love feeling. Okay, which is calm and peaceful and generally kind of feels good. You feel creative in that place. You feel generous in that place, right? Children say, well, I want to share when I'm in that place. I'm just getting a bit hot. And otherwise, children and adults are in like a fear mode. Okay, that's where jealousy, frustration, confusion, disconnect, greed, right? All those things that comes from fear, and anger. Anger comes from fear, right? Have you ever noticed how incredibly angry you become when, well, I don't know how many children you have or how old your children are, but I'll say for me, when I had a little toddler in the road and an older child was sort of generally around that vicinity of the little toddler, and we were about to cross the street and I looked over there and my toddler started running in the road, right? And theoretically, my older child was responsible for my toddler, which is a bit funny, right? Anyway, and the anger that I would feel toward that child, that older child, at having put my younger child in danger, right, the toddler. What are you doing? How could you? Do you know? Do you know about what? Do you understand? Right? The incredible anger. And because it was fueled by fear, I was just petrified that my kid was running in the road. Right? I wasn't really that angry with that child. And I didn't really, if I took a step back, I knew that child probably didn't understand exactly what they were expected to do or entitled to do, and that their reactions were not. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't real. It was much more fueled by my own fear. Right? And anger often is. I mean, it always is. Anger is fueled by confusion, fear, it's all that. Right? So children who are experiencing these experiences, it's okay, right, when they have some cloudy thinking. It's fine. If they know that it's just a bit of cloudy thinking, and cloudy thinking kind of generally, it moves, like the clouds outside. And I say to children, what do you have to do to make the clouds move? And they all say, daven to Hashem, right? Which is cute, but it's not really true. Even if I didn't daven to Hashem, the clouds would move, right? They just move. They do that. That's the nature of thought. It just moves. It goes. Isn't that amazing? You don't have to do anything. What you can do, though, is hold on to it tightly, right? And what I always do to children is I say to them, okay, look at this green lid, okay? And we're going to do this together as well. Look at the green lid. You see the green lid? You see it, okay? Now, if I would say to you, only have one thought in your head, okay, about just the thought of the green lid. As soon as you think anything else, and we're going to do it in a second, so don't do it yet, okay, right? As soon as you think of anything else, raise your hand, okay? Anything else meaning, why am I looking at this green lid? The green lid has, some stripes on it. Green lids, green, I think of green grass or whatever, anything else. Any other thoughts, then you got to raise your hand. Okay, you ready? We're going to do this. 1, 2, 3, go. Right? It's very quick. And those of you who didn't, raise your hand. Why? Because what were you doing? Green lid, green lid, green lid, green lid, green lid. Right? Because that's the only way to keep a thought in your head. If you keep recalling it, keep bringing it back, keep bringing it back, keep bringing it back. But it's actually not the same thought. It's a new one, right? Green lid, green lid, green lid, green lid. Because you can't. And children will say, yeah, I know. I started thinking about the green lid and then I started going off into a different direction, right? It's amazing. And it's really true. Thoughts don't stay in your head for very long. They can't do it. They can't stay in your head for very long, which is a beautiful thing. Because that's flow, right? And remember I told you life teaches you about life? If you look at life, water is another thing that we call life, right? Water has to flow in order for it to be healthy. As soon as it becomes stagnant, it can become lethal, right? You know about all those African countries where the children can't drink the water because they become blind, and that's stagnant water. Because stagnant water is excellent for bacteria to grow in. Flowing water, well, it can't. Bacteria cannot grow in that. So flowing water is life. Stagnant water is death. The same is true with what's going on in your head. When children understand that life it passes, it's okay, it goes. Doesn't matter if I'm in a bit of a bad mood because I can see beyond that experience. It's going to get better soon. I'm going to feel better soon. And then they don't actually panic and get dragged all the way down here. They just come right back up. That's how it goes. That's the nature of thought, which is a very exciting thing when you understand that about children. Because that means that you don't have to get caught up in their story either. Right? I often describe it as like this. I say that, okay, I'm going to draw on this part of the board. I say that this part of, right, if you go like this. Ready? This is good mood. Okay, this is me in a good mood. This is me in a bad mood. Okay, and you'll notice that it's a continuum. I drew it as a continuum because you're not either in a good mood or in a bad mood. You're often around here or there or right, and you generally go like that, right? Not that neatly, but you generally move up and down, right? You move up and down the thing. So being in a good mood, it's such a nice feeling. It's such a good feeling. It's such a good place. But you're not often there, right? Now, often what happens is you get really, really, really cross about something or frustrated about something. Now, how do you get cross or frustrated about something? I would say this is your natural state. Right? That's your natural state. And before I tell you actually this, what I do want to say to you is that the reason why it's very good to learn all of this about emotions and about being emotionally healthy is that while we don't have to teach our children about how to be emotionally healthy, they will learn a lot from what we understand. Have you even started to see that? I don't know how old your children are, but even if you have very young children, they will start to say things that sound like you, right? Johnny was talking about there's a phrase, mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all, right? You sort of become your mother, but you learn from what they know, from how they see the world, more than anything. And parents need to say nothing. That's often when you have teenagers, and they'll often say, Mommy, I know. And you're like, but I don't remember ever saying that to you, but I know, right? You think you need to tell children not to behave not nicely to their friends? They know, they're just having cloudy thinking at the moment. So they're looking out through that lens. We see the world through the prism of our own thinking. They're looking out through that lens. And that's what they're experiencing, right? They're experiencing clouds, so therefore their interactions with other human beings are cloudy. Okay? Now so if you know about this, then every interaction that you have with your child is through this knowledge or through this understanding, then they develop this understanding too. They don't get as worried about their own thinking either. Now sometimes what happens is like this, right? You get into a bad mood. Let's say you're here. You're not quite here, but you're here. Okay? You're on the first floor, you're kind of in the basement. Okay? Not basement -1 or -2 or -3, but you're in the basement. Okay? Now, often what happens when you are in the basement is that you invite other people to come in the basement with you. You know what I mean by that? You're in a bad mood, right? You're in a bad mood. And my husband used to sort of say this to me when we were first married. He's like, wow, you want me to get in there with you, right? And I'm like, yeah, I think, right? But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it, which was very interesting and quite maddening at the time because I really wanted him to be in a bad mood with me. So I would start accusing him of all kinds of great things, like from not being able to take out the rubbish to totally not understanding me, to not knowing what it's like to be in a new country, to all kinds of things I would throw at him. And he just wouldn't come down there into my story with me. He wouldn't come down there with me. He has his own, right? Everybody has their own personal continuum. He just didn't make sense to him at that moment to do that. thankfully, didn't make sense to him. And he would sort of stay somewhere up here. I imagine he wasn't here because his wife was being a miserable pain in the neck, right? But he was somewhere around there, okay? I'm imagining, I'm making it up, but I think so. Now the interesting thing is you can't actually have a conversation with people like that. You can't do it. It's very funny, right? Either he's going to have to come down here, or I'm going to have to sort of let go a little bit, and then naturally we rise to here. Okay, this is our natural state of being. Naturally, it's almost like a rubber band. In order to keep ourselves down here, if you've noticed, you actually have to engage a lot of strength, and I'll call this thinking, cloudy thinking. Okay, the cloudier, the more you engage in your thinking, the more seriously you take your thinking, the more you pull, it's almost like a rubber band, you pull yourself down. And as soon as you sort of notice that a little bit, often that releases it, right? Sometimes you notice and you think, because sometimes when you're down here, boy, what does that look like? That looks like everybody has wronged you, right? You've done something mean to me. You dragged me to this country. I never said I wanted to go. You did this. You made me have lots of children. You child, you can't even tie your shoelaces. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Everybody is at fault, and everything seems like it's about the externals. But if I kind of realize that it's never really about the externals, it's always about what's going on inside of my head, then often it allows me to sort of rise up. And the beautiful thing is that if you don't buy into someone else's story, right? Did you see the story I was creating in my head? It was great. There's lots of stuff going on there. You did that to me, you did that to me, you did that to me, you did that to me. And it seemed very plausible to me. And it was my story and I was sticking to it. Okay? But if you don't buy into my story with me, we can't really have a conversation until I kind of let a little bit go. And then I'm on the same level as you. So the best thing that you can do for your children is, again, not buy into their story. Just notice, you're in a little bit of cloudy thinking at the moment. But here's a big hint. Don't tell them that, right? So what Johnny was saying before, that after you have a baby, you kind of aren't really available for conversation for a little while, or sensible conversation. And I remember saying to my husband about 3 weeks after I had my second child, because then I sort of started to suss out what was going on here. And I said, okay, I'm not compos mentis at the moment. I'm not available for conversation, okay? And certainly not reasonable conversation. But I will demand things. And I will become pretty unreasonable. And don't you dare at that moment tell me that I'm being unreasonable. Don't you dare point out to me that I said to you before that I'm not available for reasonable conversation, because I won't be available for reasonable conversation. That's not it. He was like, well, that's very clear. Thank you. I understand very well now what I'm supposed to do. But what I really was trying to sort of in a backward way say to him is, don't take me too seriously, but please don't let me know that you're not taking me too seriously, because that will add to it, right? So as you as a parent for a child, when a child is getting completely in their head, the best message that you can give that child is, I'm here for you, but you're okay. Okay, I'm going to answer you in 1 second. Thank you. I'm here for you, but you're okay. And I remember that my son, when he was being very, very bullied, very bullied. I wasn't there, but it seemed to him that he was being very bullied in school when he was in year 7. He went to high school for the first year. It was very dramatic and very difficult for him. Okay, and he wasn't a particularly dramatic kid. He was having a very hard time. Now, afterward, he said to us, and this is the best, right, when children teach you what you need to know about parenting. He said to us, he said, you know what? He said, you did good. We're like, did we? Wow, that's a first. That's pretty good. How did we do good? So he said, because you never let me think that I couldn't handle this, and yet I never felt that I was alone, right? And that's that push, pull, or whatever. Right? Draw close and pull near. A child can deal with whatever it is that they need to deal with. But it's great when they feel like you've got their back. Okay, that's the greatest expression I think I've ever heard in terms of an emotional experience. Right? You've got their back. Meaning we did phone people who was appropriate for us to phone when he was being bullied. But we never took away his impetus. We never took away his sense that he could deal with this on his own, that he was okay. And we would gently point him in the direction of his own wisdom and say, well, what do you think would be a good idea here? How do you feel this could go better? What would you be your ideal situation, or what do you think is actually happening here? Right? We always would point him in the direction of his own wisdom. Right? And the best teachers point you in a certain direction, but never tell you what to see, or point you in a certain, how's it go? They point something out to you, but they don't tell you what to see, right? And that's it. That's what wisdom beautifully is. You don't have to tell a child what to do, because their own wisdom will help them better than you can help them. You just want to not get into their story, okay? What I mean by getting into their story, when a child comes home and says, this person is not nice to me, that person's not nice to me, the teacher is really not nice to me, nobody likes me, and you're like, well, that's crazy. Teachers are not supposed to speak that way to children. They're never supposed to say that to anybody. That the child is not a very nice person. You know what? Stay away from him. That's not a nice kid. No, don't go. Go be with friends with that kid, right? And you start getting all busy with figuring things out for them and in their story. And that's really confusing often for children. And I know this because I speak to children a lot. It's very confusing for a child, because what they meant to do is come home and push your wall, right? What Johnny said before was brilliant. They mean to come home and push your wall. They don't want your wall to crumble with their crumbling. That's not what they meant. They didn't mean that. You think you're being so nice and kind and getting in there with them, but what you've done is you've gone into their story with them, and then both of you can have a party in the basement, right, for a long time. And guess what? That's not so pretty. It's not a pretty party, right? But what you can do is look at them and give them a lot of support. Just, yeah. And it does. You know what? We all know that. When there's lots of clouds in the sky, and one child also said the most gorgeous thing to me. Listen to this. Absolutely stunning. She said, it's like a thunderstorm. I said, yeah. And then we both sort of looked at each other, and she said it. And she said, and when you have a thunderstorm in your head, it rains through your eyes. I'm like, it does. That's exactly what happens, right? It just rains through your eyes, and it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's just a thunderstorm, right? Do you get mad about a thunderstorm and think, the world is over, it's gone? We'll wait till it's over, and then the sun will come out again, right? Like it says in the song, tomorrow. Might even be today. That's the beautiful, beautiful thing about being able to believe in a child, right? And belief in a child's wisdom and belief, and I know you still have a question, I'm sorry. Belief in a child's wisdom and belief in a child's inherent and innate well-being and inherent wisdom is really all they need. People say to me, well, you do this for this child, that for this child, and I say, you know what, I'm going to be very honest with you. The only thing I do when I come in, and I'm supposedly the expert, okay, when I come in and I sit across from a child who's the bully in the school, the child who's had the most difficult anything, the only thing I really do when I sit across from that child is believe in them. Believe in them. Believe in their ability to be great. Believe in their ability to discover their own wisdom. Believe in their honest to goodness awesomeness, okay? And that's all I do. And then we have conversations through that lens. I don't think they're a mess. I don't buy into the story that they're terrible people. I just don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. And the beautiful thing is that human beings rise up. That's what we do. That's how we were programmed. Yay! We rise up. We just do it naturally. That's what we do. So we don't have to worry too much about anybody getting all caught up in there, because it's just clouds. And even it's a thunderstorm and there's waterworks everywhere. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's okay. Meaning, I'm not saying it doesn't matter for the child, they're having a difficult experience, but I'm saying bigger, right? Talking about emotional resilience, see a little bit bigger. That's a difficult thing. We hug them, but just because we're not getting into their story doesn't mean that we're not supporting them, right? There's a difference between that, right? If I recently had a friend that came over to my house, and it was so interesting because she said to me, I want to tell you something. I said, okay. And she said, I just told someone something very, very personal. Okay? I told my neighbor something very, very personal. Now, she happens to be very good friends with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law just called me that afternoon and told me the thing that I told my neighbor that was very, very personal. I said, ow, right, that hurt. She said, and you know what? I am not going to help her for her bar mitzvah. Okay, I'm very, very hurt by this, and I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. I cleared out my whole freezer for her. She's having a bar mitzvah in 2 weeks. I was going to host her family from Manchester. I was going to do this. I was going to make challahs for her. Forget it. Not happening. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it. Okay, and I'm looking at her. Right now, thankfully, I knew that she was just experiencing a bit of a thunderstorm in her head. She'd been hurt. She felt hurt. It was something very personal for her, very private. She thought she was sharing it with someone privately. They then went and betrayed her trust in her mind. Right? She felt extremely hurt. I didn't say, oh, grow up. Okay? Even though I kind of felt it a bit. No, I'm joking. I didn't. I felt her pain. She was in pain. But the last thing she would need for me to do at that point would be to say, oh, you're right. You are right. You know what? Not only should you not make a bar mitzvah, help her make a bar mitzvah, not only should you not put any challahs or make any challahs or have your freezer or whatever, but you know what? You should hang up a sign on the door saying betrayer, right? Or whatever. Okay? Do something even more. Yes. And you know what? Don't ever talk to her again because she cannot be trusted. Right? That would be the last thing that this poor lady would need from me. Because thankfully, I'm not in her head and I could see her experience pretty clearly, right? Any of you would be able to see this is a person in pain. She's just in pain right now. Is she going to be in pain forever? No. Is she probably going to see it a little bit more clearly? Right? It's almost like those snow globes. You know, you shake up a snow globe, right? And Moscow is the thing, and when it's shaken up, you can't actually see Moscow because there's so much snow in there, right? That's what it's like when you have so much clouds in your head and so much negative thinking in your head. All right. Can't see it clearly, okay. It'll settle, right? Like the snow globes. They settle. It'll settle, and then she'll probably say something along the lines of, you know, whatever, I guess she didn't mean it. Or she obviously didn't realize, and the truth is I didn't actually say it was private. It just seemed private to me, but I guess I didn't say that clearly, and I guess next time if I want to tell someone something, I should probably say it, right? Often people will come up with that themselves, and your children will do that too. They are phenomenal at that. Yes, and I'm going to take questions. Phenomenal at being able to see beyond their own experience as long as you allow them space to settle down. Yes, sorry. So you wanted to say something?
A general question.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah.
The impression that I got was someone who thinks a lot, a big thinker, is more likely to get in that space.
Yeah. It can be. I'm definitely one of those. I'm a massive, every time, you know, you have like your handwriting analyzed or any of those things, the first thing they say is, big thinker, you think a lot. Okay, I do. I think a lot. So I've definitely been known, and but now the beauty is that now that I know what I know, then I tend to not buy into it. Okay, I'll notice that I've done this, and I'll know what it is that I'm actually experiencing. Instead of thinking, oh, but it's her, she did that to me, or that's why I'm feeling this way. I'll know that it's actually just my thinking. And that just inevitably just lightens the whole thing up. Something so fascinating happened, and I'm going to answer your question in a second. I was in Be Kosher the other day, and there were two Beis Yaakov girls that were in it. It could be, I'm not sure if any of your daughters, but I don't know. But it was a very cute story. Because there were two girls, and they were like probably year 7, you know, they're like tiny and wearing these big uniforms. And they were buying chocolate or nosh, whatever, after school. And their wasp came into the door. Okay, I was going to Be Kosher, and this wasp came in. And so one of them suddenly notices the wasp, and she goes, oh my God, walk around, and the whole store goes quiet, right? Because there's somebody screaming and yelping. And her friend, who was standing right next to her, went, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's just a wasp. Don't worry about it. And she's going, you're putting it in your meat. Stop it. Right? And she's like, well, go away. Don't worry about it. It will go away. It's just a wasp. It doesn't need you. Leave it alone. And the funny thing, okay, and this is where it gets very interesting, is that at that point, what happened was the girl who was going like this said, to the other girl, but why are you so worried about it? It's a wasp. It's just a wasp. And a girl who was going mad said, well, what are you talking about? Why are you not worried about it? It's a wasp, right? And then they said exactly the same thing at exactly the same moment. Fascinating. They said, you know why? Both at the same time. You know why? Because I was stung. Both of them, right? So the one who was stung, she's petrified of it. The other one who was stung was like, it's no big deal. So you were stung. Here I am to tell the tale. It's okay, it's all right. I was stung, and then it hurt, and then it got better, and now here I am. It's all right, it's no big deal, right? It's not the wasp that causes, it's what's going on inside of your head. A very interesting moment I had, and I was like, wait, did everybody else sort of notice that in the store? And the one person who was next to me, she was like, I knew you would love that. I knew you would love that. I'm like, I love it, because it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful example of being able to understand that it's not the wasp, it's not the playground, it's not the other friends, it's not the teacher. It's how you're experiencing that moment, right? And you know that all your children, the children will come home, and your child will say, that was just the worst day. The teacher was so mean today, so mean. And you get a little bit frustrated about it. You call up your friend, and you say, she has a child in the same class, and you say, well, did Ruchi come home saying it was a terrible day? And she goes, no, she was really happy when she came home. She said, well, ask her about that class. And she was like, don't really remember it. Yeah, it was fine, right? Because it's not the teacher, it's your child's experience of it, which doesn't make your child crazy. It just means that your child was having a difficult experience, which is what we all do. We all go up and down. This is extremely human of us. And I'm very human that I think a lot. It's fine. I just am cool because I know now that I think a lot, so I don't get too caught up in my own thinking. Yes?
In that situation with your friend at the bar mitzvah,
Yeah.
like you said, you don't want to go down into her game and say, well, don't host them. But you also don't want her to know that you're like, it's belittling.
Yeah.
Right, so what exactly would you say?
So I'll tell you how my wonderful husband used to, when we were first married, I used to go at him, and he just wouldn't come into my story, right? Now, how did he manage that one quite nicely? Is he would just sit with me and listen. He was really with me. We were talking about listening before. So I'll tell you something even a little bit deeper about listening that's really beautiful, is that a person really knows that you're listening because they can see what's going on behind your eyes. Okay, and even children, boy, do they do that, right? Do you ever have a child who does this to you, right, and wants your full attention, right? Now, the reason why they want it, but even they can tell, and you can tell, and I'm sure you can see in a friendship, where if someone has something on their mind, if they're listening with something on their mind, they're not really listening, right? You know that with friends were like waiting for you to finish so that they can then say what they wanted to say? That's not listening. Just saying, right? That's sort of listening. That's waiting rather than listening. Listening means really listening to you. And more than anything, what I tell you about children, are we already that late? No, but we started late. When do I go till?
5 minutes.
5 more minutes? What is beautiful, which maybe just takes us to that, is that, and I feel like I want to share everything with you, but I only have 5 more minutes, is that never do you have to worry, I'm saying this in the wrong way, but I'll fix it in a second. Never do you have to really worry about a child's behavior. What you really want to do is look at the feeling behind the behavior, right? Because thoughts create feelings, which then creates behavior, which then often, doesn't have to, sometimes you can have a feeling and you don't have the behavior. But you can't, it's the feeling, right? As soon as I always say to children, if you see a child that's being mean and aggressive, you know for sure that they're feeling uncomfortable in their head, that they're feeling cloudy, is the way I would describe it to these kids in their head. 100%. Even if she's like being mean with a big smile on her face, okay? You know that she's not feeling comfortable. And therefore the behavior of the child isn't almost always a red herring. Well, if you focus on it. It's not a red herring if you understand that it represents the child's internal experience. Behavior simply represents a child's internal experience. That's it. So as soon as you understand that, you don't get caught up in their behavior, right? This woman is saying, well, I'm never going to, but I'm not going to, but I this and that. And that's her behavior, right? If I don't get caught up in her behavior, but I actually talk to her feelings, then I'm really helping her. Because she's feeling, and that's what, we weren't created in this world by ourselves. We have each other, right? Why do we have each other? Right? That's a hint, right? We have each other because the connection between human beings, soul to soul, is incredibly healing and incredibly healthy, right? So when I'm focused, when I talk to somebody's soul, when I talk to somebody's emotions, when I talk to somebody's feelings, I do a much better job for them than even in any way engaging about their behavior, right? So what I would do is sort of just sit and listen to somebody. At that point, just be there with them. Listen with nothing on my mind. Not like, okay, so when she finishes, I'm going to tell her how silly she is, or when she, right? But really listen, because she's talking out her pain, and I'm listening to it, and I'm being there with her for it. The same thing with the kids. No. And do you know what most children will say to you when they grow up, and they'll tell you about how you did as you're going along? They'll say to you, and I have very verbal teenagers, so I get a lot of feedback. And they will say, the best thing ever was that you never really had to, we didn't feel like we needed saving. We didn't feel like you were agitated. It was also, they weren't worried about coming to me with their biggest, most, annoying stories, right? We always laugh because one of my sons came home and he said, Mommy, I got in trouble today. And I said, yeah, what happened? And he said, I got in trouble because I said to the teacher, she was really boring. Okay? And I said, really? I said, how did that go? She went, well, she sent me out of class. So I said, oh, okay. And then I kind of left it for a bit. And then he went, all right, so I didn't say the whole truth. And I said, yeah, what was the whole truth? And he said, I kind of yelled it. You're really boring! I was like, that really probably didn't go over too well. He was like, yeah. And then he just walked away, and that was it. It was just, he didn't need me to say to him, so tomorrow, make sure you behave better. Make sure you whatever. He knew. He understood. He felt it. He got it. There was nothing that he needed from me, really. And that same child actually, later, many years later, was really angry about something. And everybody left. And I stayed with him and I sat with him. And I kind of just listened to him. And if I could have videoed him, it would be like an inspiring lesson for everybody because he was so angry about things. But in his talking about it, he arrived at the most beautiful and creative solution for himself about how to help himself. It was an incredible journey. And I said not a word. I might have, a little bit of that, not a word. And in 5 minutes, he had gone from being a mess to absolutely being fine, because they don't need your advice. That's the crazy thing. They need your understanding, they need your love, they need your support, and they need your belief in them. And that's not something you actually have to tell them the whole time. But in every message, right, if you're sitting there and you're waiting for a child to get to their own place, then they know, you believe in me. I'm fine, I'm great, I'm good. Yes, sorry, is that okay? Yeah.
Your child comes home and they've had an awful day and they just want to really tell you all that, and they do a sort of argument or squabble with another child. Now, are you meant to just be understanding, not give any direction, and also to follow on your point about the child not being nice, that's just a symptom of their emotions, but how do you teach, for example, your 11-year-old very emotional daughter, that is the case, and when you do say that, you're not being sympathetic to her, because you're understanding about them and not about how she's feeling.
Well, the beauty of all of that is that you're understanding how everybody's feeling. If you really understand that human beings are acting out of their own internal experience. Well, because the truth is, Rome is not built in a day, right? Meaning you can love all the people that need to be loved, and you can also, discipline is also applicable. Meaning if somebody is hurting somebody actively, you don't just wait for them to kind of figure it out, right? You help the other person, right? You help a little bit where you need to help. Where you don't need to help, which is funny, is to really teach them the fundamentals of how to be a nice person, because they get it. They know. But Meaning I need that their parents will understand them, because that's what you can do for another human being. It's just help people understand where someone's at. And then you know what? The words are not what's important. It's the feeling. Ever notice that, right? Connection, right? Somebody will say to you, "You look so nice," right? And you're like, right? And then, right? And then somebody else will say to you, "So I really love your skirt, but your top would be amazing. Because you know that other top that you have, which I love, love, love? Wear that one next time with that one." And you'd be like, "Wait, but she criticized me, but I love what she's saying to me," right? Because the feeling was love, right? The feeling was love and connection. It's not about the words. Never about the words. Always about the feeling. And notice also your own state of mind in all this, right? There's your state of mind, there's her state of mind, and then there's her state of mind, right? So we're all of us human beings. Yay. And we're all of us fine. We are. We just get stuck a little bit in what's going on. But emotionally resilient human beings are not people who never experience getting stuck, right? They're just people who can a little bit see beyond it. I'm stuck right now, but I'll feel better soon. And just that knowledge is incredible. And I'll end with one tiny last thing. We were robbed a year ago. We were burgled. And my two big boys, two of them, no, not my biggest boy, but my two second boys, had collectively 3,000 pounds in the house. I didn't know that. They had worked and they had done something and they took it. They had taken even some money out of the bank because they were 17 and 18, right? They were doing that. So at that moment in time, they had 3,000 pounds in the house that got stolen, okay? Now, they were pretty devastated. They had worked hard for that money. They had plans for that money. They really were upset. But the beautiful thing is that one of them said to the other one, right? And I was trying, and none of my stuff was stolen, right? So it was like we didn't know my money was in the bank. They stole a broken camera that I had that I was going to throw away, and it was like that. So that one of them said to the other one, "You know what? This is crazy right now. This is like the worst day of our life, okay? This is a terrible, terrible thing that happened to us. But at some point, we're going to feel better. We just will. Because that's how it goes. We know that's how it goes. At some point, we are going to feel better. So let's try to start that now." Do you know what I mean? It was so cute when they said it to each other, because it was just like, it's such a ridiculously feeling that we're in right now. They happen to have had like cousins over from Israel, and they couldn't even look at them because they were in it, right? They were really in it. And I didn't say to them, "Oh, come on, you know it's going to be fine," right? I was with it. I was with them. I wasn't buying into their story with them, but I was with them. I could feel how much pain they were in. And they figured it out themselves. And when the other one said to the other one, he said, "You're right. Tiny bit, I can feel a little bit of lighter," right? It's almost like, outside when there's this heavy, and then there's that tiny, tiny bit of lightening in the air, right? In the clouds. And you feel like, okay, this might actually be okay, right? That's emotional resilience, right? And I didn't teach that to them. I did not teach it to them. I at no point ever said that to them. But because I understand a little bit about it, and I look at, then they just came up with that themselves. That's emotional resilience. Sorry, everybody, that I didn't answer your questions, but is that okay? That's enough. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for the right word.
Fantastic, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
And it was great to have the sunshine and the thunderstorms and the perspective as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Soloman.
A pleasure.
Okay, it's lunchtime here, and everybody's thoughts, I can see what everyone's thinking about.